Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have got some breaking news for you this evening, and that is that the Home Office has decided to pause decisions on Syrian asylum claims. This is, of course, after the fall of Bashar al-Assad, the dictator in Syria, for many, many years. That was quite a crazy moment yesterday, seeing that he was officially toppled from power. We have heard that he has agreed to hand over power to the rebels that took him down, and he is now in exile in Russia, taken in by his mate Putin. So let's have a look at what is going on. Well, this came after, I'll just play for you first, whether they had decided already or it was prompted by Richard Tice, not 100% sure, but Richard Tice asked this question in the House of Commons to the Home Office, and then we got answers about this. So take a listen to what Richard Tice had to say.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and we welcome the Foreign Secretary's statement on this fast-evolving situation. And the Secretary of State has referred to the many displaced Syrians looking to return to Syria, for opportunities and risks. Will the government be providing assistance to those Syrians in this country who do wish to return to their homeland? And will the government look to follow the example of European nations like Germany, who have suspended asylum applications?
I have to say that has not been put to me in the last few hours. The issue that's been put to me is the humanitarian need in country, the humanitarian support for neighbours. And I think the consensus of this House and the significant funds that we have supported Syria with should reassure people of our content to support people on the ground in the region.
Okay, so you had that there from Richard Tice. He spoke in the House of Commons asking for answers on this, and sure enough, this evening we have now got those answers from the Home Office. So let's have a closer look at what the Home Office had to say. Get your comments coming in, letting me know your thoughts on the situation in Syria. Do you think that everyone's celebrating too early, or do you think that there is reason to celebrate? Obviously, we don't know what the next government is going to look like there. We'll have a discussion about that later. So get your comments coming in, and we will have a talk together about what the future of Syria is going to look like. But for now, let's have a look at what the Home Office have to say. The Home Office has paused decisions on Syrian asylum claims whilst we assess the current situation. That's what they said in their statement. They went on to say, we keep all country guidance relating to asylum claims under constant review so we can respond to emerging issues. The move comes after Germany, Greece and Austria also paused asylum applications for thousands of Syrians. So this is happening across Europe. Now, I was surprised to see a decision to pause the Syrian asylum claims come so fast out of the Home Office, given we really have no idea what the governance of Syria is going to look like after the fall of the Bashar al-Assad regime. Now, clearly they are pausing rather than saying, off you go back home. They are, as they say here, they are assessing the current situation. So maybe they are thinking about it carefully and they aren't all celebrating super early in the Home Office. But it seems like the Syrians themselves are, they're not sat back waiting, assessing and worrying about what's to come next, because if you look at what's going on in Damascus and here on the streets of London, all the Syrians seem to be absolutely ecstatic about the fall of this horrible regime that has led to so many people being imprisoned and tortured. I mean, torturing, women and young children was commonplace here. Very, very scary place to live. This was them celebrating on the streets of London. So there we have it, Syrians celebrating on the streets of London the fall of the Assad regime. I personally, I don't have an issue of them celebrating on this day, these people who have been in the United Kingdom, whether you think that we should have accepted them as asylum seekers or not. Obviously, if they're here and there is a fall of a horrible dictator, they are probably going to be happy about it and going to be celebrating it. Some people are not happy about seeing a flag that's not the British flag flown on our streets, and trust me, I'm well aware that there is an issue in this country of people demonising the British flag and not flying it outside enough, and that absolutely matters to me. But I've got no problem with these guys out celebrating. These people, they've had, almost all of them will have seen family and friends, tortured, imprisoned in absolute, horrific ways through no fault of their own. So, but let's just discuss this question of, are we all celebrating a bit too early? You saw everyone ecstatic there. You've probably seen videos from Damascus, people running into government buildings, stealing furniture, all ecstatic and hyper. But let's just think about who has overthrown Assad, right? These so-called rebels. Well, who are they? They are terrorists, okay? These are people who are ex-Al-Qaeda. They have gone through that. They have been helped by the Turks, and the Turks have told them that they need to basically water down their image a little bit and seem a little bit less like terrorists and seem more moderate and say that they're going to be kind to people. And you saw the orders were given when they went in to Damascus to take out the Assad regime. They were clear. They instructed their fighters, do not go into any homes, do not go after any civilians, which is rather unlike the ISIS who operate in the area. They will happily go after civilians. They are not usually targeting just people who are in positions of power. So they may have watered down their image a little bit and made it look like they're the good guys, but are they going to do that until they've secured their power and pretend that they're the nice guys, and then it will just basically be like the new ISIS, right? This could be another horrifying Islamist regime. This could be an even worse situation potentially, and everyone is out celebrating. And sure, there is some reason to celebrate when some leader who has caused you so much oppression for so many years is gone. But I'm kind of saying hold your horses, guys, because we don't know what is going to happen. You have got these people who have now taken over. They are on terrorist lists in most modern countries. We've got people from proscribed terrorist organisations have just toppled the Assad regime. Okay, so it's like one bad guy against another bad guy. Okay, in Syria, it's not just the bad guys versus the good guys. Okay, you've got bad guys versus good guys versus bad guys. There's so many different groups, and I thought that I just wanted to show you this video from Trump that I'm not sure how old this is resurfaced today, but explaining how you've got in these areas, you've got people who are both bad guys fighting each other, and that's kind of how we ended up in this situation. Today, we've had a bad guy fight a bad guy, made one bad guy fall, but we've got other bad guys potentially coming into power. So take a listen to what Trump had to say here.
So Taliban is our enemy. ISIS is our enemy. We have an area that I brought up with our generals 4 or 5 weeks ago where Taliban is here, ISIS is here, and they're fighting each other. I said, why don't you let them fight? Why are we getting in the middle of it? I said, let them fight. They're both our enemies. Let them fight. Sir, we want to do it. They go in and they end up fighting both of them. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I think I would have been a good general, but who knows?
There we go. So Trump there talking about how you've got different groups, both bad guys fighting each other. He's saying, and he tweeted yesterday, we shouldn't get involved. We should let them figure it out for themselves and sit back and see what happens. I wanted to, before we get to your comments, just show you this video from Rafe, who's a commentator who you may know. He's been on our channel before, talking on Talk TV earlier about the situation, how we should be somewhat worried about what is to come next. Take a listen.
Is because their hold over Syria isn't sure, because there are other rebel factions also there.
Yes.
Syria is a large country.
Yeah.
The question is, does this organisation have the ability to actually control the entire state, or is it all going to descend into factionism and further sort of civil war? And you have to remember, of course, that, when, in the Middle East, it's quite often a choice between a secular dictator and an Islamist dictator. Assad, Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, evil, brutal dictators, but at least they had a grip on Islamism.
Yes.
And and then once they were toppled...
And even Mubarak in Egypt.
And Mubarak. But, Libya and Iraq became even more dangerous and volatile after these guys were toppled. And that's what we have to wait and see now. What will Syria's future be?
And an awful lot of the result of that was that we ended up taking the brunt of the refugees who ended up coming to Western Europe. I mean, I was quite staggered because I was reading about this yesterday, about the sheer numbers of people who came. Because remember Angela Merkel, who was being lauded just the other day because of this new book that she's got out, as the great Chancellor of Germany. She was responsible almost single-handedly for saying to people coming from Syria, there's a war on, please come into Germany. And about 1 million came. Many of them weren't from Syria at all. They said they were. But it turns out that something like a fifth of the population, about 5 million people, are currently in Western Europe from Syria.
Yeah, 5.5 million, actually.
Yeah.
And so, the Syrian refugee crisis was one of the great events, of course, for Brexit as well.
Right.
Angela Merkel's millstone around her neck. It's been one of the motivating forces for so much of the disastrous effects we've seen across Europe. I think the British government, it's wishful thinking on my part, needs to come out and say, we are not going to accept any Syrian refugees, because, of course, there's going to be another wave, because now that you've got Islamists in power, the minority communities, as well as moderate, Shia Muslims, are going to want to leave. The Alawites, which was Assad's lot.
Right.
Now the thing is, there's Armenia, which is Christian. There's Cyprus as well. But Egypt's got a huge Christian population.
Yeah.
So does Lebanon. So there are places that they can go within the region. And I think it's time for the Muslim world to step up. Finally, these rich, wealthy countries in the Middle East can certainly either accommodate them or pay poorer nations to house them.
Yes.
We are full up. We can't take any more.
But also, should we not also be encouraging the people here? Because there were people demonstrating in Manchester, in London. Trafalgar Square was full of them. Many of them saying, now we can go home. Well, go then. And I don't wish to be sound unceremonial, and I don't wish to sound unhospitable, or inhospitable rather. But if you want to come here as an asylum seeker because your country is in a bad way, when it improves, go back.
Exactly. I mean, to be fair, some people are going back now already, just within the first few hours. Germany understands this now. So in Germany, you have temporary visas if you're a refugee, which makes perfect sense.
Does make sense.
Why we don't have that over here, I do not understand.
Same as the way Ukraine is supposed to work.
Denmark has been sending people back to Syria actually for a couple of years now, funnily enough. And the British government should say anyone who fled Assad's regime will be deported back to Syria once it's safe to do so.
Right.
And I'm sure the British taxpayer wouldn't mind hiring some charter flights to facilitate that.
So there we go. Some interesting points made by Rafe there, explaining how this could go very, very sour with the wrong people taking charge in Syria. We don't know exactly what's going to happen yet. Okay, so let's hold our horses for the next few days. Of course, we will keep you updated here on the Reason channel with what is going on. So make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, so you don't miss out on any updates. I think that there's a very interesting question that was raised there by Rafe that we need to ask. My dog is misbehaving and won't sit still, so I apologise for moving around, trying to get him under control. The question of, are we going to see more people leaving Syria or fewer people leaving Syria as a consequence of this? Now, I was quite surprised. I've seen videos of people on the streets in Trafalgar Square saying, yep, we want to go home now. And, this literally just happened yesterday. And I saw this aerial shot view of the roads of people travelling back from Turkey to Syria. Not a lot of Syrians are in Turkey. The roads absolutely rammed after what happened yesterday, of people going back to Syria, back to their homeland, back to see their friends and family, whether those are all people moving back permanently or just coming back to say hello to the people they haven't been able to see. I don't know, but I was quite surprised by how quickly people are keen to move back to their country when we don't even know what's going to happen next. It could be like ISIS all over again. Okay, it could be a horrible Islamist regime that comes into power as a consequence of this. As I said, these so-called rebels, they are terrorists. They may have watered down their terrorist image a little bit and made themselves look a bit like the nice guys, but we don't know what they're going to do once they've 100% secured their power. So it will be really interesting to see. And then there is the question of, if there is another wave, where do they go? Where do we put them? I think Rafe is right to suggest that the Middle East needs to step up a little bit rather than basically pushing them along until they get all the way to Britain. I think he mentioned Lebanon there. Lebanon, Christian country, but Lebanon has taken a absolutely huge number of Syrians as it is. So I think they are, I think they would probably say that they are full in the way that Britain would say that they are full. But there are plenty of other countries that maybe need to do their part. But so long as the Europeans take all of them, they think, not our problem. Someone else is dealing with it for us. There are no easy answers to this question, by the way. But please get your comments in, letting me know what you think. And speaking of which, let's get to your comments. So thank you to Lee, who has left a super chat. I really apologise that I have not got my Christmas hat on. It is just across the room from me, and I think because you've given a super chat, I will have to get off my arse and go get it for you because you were so kind to leave a super chat. So let me get my Christmas hat for you, Lee. I don't want our viewers to be disappointed. I've got 2 Christmas hats. Not sure which one you guys prefer. But we've got the reindeer one for today. So let's get the hat on for whilst we look at your comments. Can't get it on straight. But there we go. That's good enough. So let's have a look at what you guys think about Syria. We've had some great comments coming on. Quite a mix of opinion. So let's have a look. So we've had quite a few people commenting, concerned about it becoming like Libya. I mean, we heard Rafe there mention in that clip his concern about it becoming like Libya. This could end up like another Libya if we don't end up with the right guys in power. You'll notice that Israel have got involved here. Anyone who's confused about Israel getting involved, not their business why they're getting involved, they are concerned about the weapons in Syria getting in the hands of the wrong people, okay? Imagine if ISIS gets hold of all of those weapons that were Assad's weapons and now it's just a free-for-all. Anyone can go for them, okay? So Israel has got involved and started blowing up those facilities with those weapons to make sure that none of the bad guys get hold of them. How effective that's been, not 100% sure. As I said, we'll see over the next few days what is going on. Let's see... Thorpe sewing lessons. Okay, I'm guessing this person sells sewing lessons. A lot of people will be wanting to return home to rebuild their lives. Business under the new freedom. They will hopefully have a good education to help their own citizens. Yes, so that's true. You'll have people who have come to places like Britain and other European nations who have been able to get a good education, maybe understand how business works and whatnot, and maybe they're able to go back and take those skills back to their home country. But you need to ask yourselves, will people, you've heard a lot of Syrians saying that they want to go home, but how desperate will your typical Syrian living abroad be desperate to go back home? Of course, home is home, but if you've come and you've lived in Europe and you've lived in a proper house, with heating, with 4 walls and a roof, with proper electricity, with proper running water and sanitation, are you going to want to go back to a very, very poor country that looks absolutely nothing like it, where there's little, there's little work, the accommodation is not very good. There are some nicer parts of Syria. I don't know exactly what the whole place looks like, but it's fair to say it is a poorer country than Britain and the other European nations by a mile. So are they going to want to go back to that, even if it means that they can see old family members, but is it going to be worth it for them? Especially if they've had kids here and their kids are in school here. They're used to the British education system, of course, at the taxpayers' expense. But that's another debate. Are they going to want to go back? It'll be really interesting to see if a safe government is able to form in Syria. How many people will leave? And so on the thumbnail of this video, we're asking the question: will the Home Office start deporting Syrians? Okay, I've seen, as I say, I think we need to sit back and see, because the situation could become even more dangerous there. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter just sort of jumping the gun and saying it's time now for them all to go home. It's time for the Home Office to start deporting them right now. I don't think that we should be jumping that quickly. We need to see what happens. But I will be very interested to see, will the Home Office be willing and be able to start deporting people if it actually looks like it is now a safe place to live. Because as I said, a lot of them are they're not all going to want to go home, right? If they've got a much richer life here in Britain and in other European nations, how many of them are going to want to go back to live? You know, some of them will have been living in, say, slum conditions in Syria. Are they going to want to go back to that? I'm not sure all of them will be. So it'd be very interesting to see how European nations respond, and how does the ECHR respond if countries start trying to deport people. This is a very interesting situation. We have not seen many situations, at least whilst I've been talking about politics, where a huge regime has fallen and a country that was unsafe suddenly becomes a lot safer. So we will see what happens. Let's have a look at some of your other comments. Derek's concerned of it becoming like Libya as well. Quite a few comments like that. Chris and some others in the comments are concerned about ISIS. As I said, even if it's ISIS, the rebels who toppled the Assad regime, they're not ISIS rebels, just to clarify. But they are, or at least a lot of them are, ex-Al Qaeda guys. They're all part of these various groups of bad guys. Okay, but as I said, even if they are the guys who toppled the Assad regime, you've now got this power vacuum, and you could have all the different groups, including ISIS, coming in and trying to grab power. Okay, ISIS could come in and topple the new guys if they don't have enough of a stronghold on power. And we'll see what happens with those weapons in Syria, and whether any of the bad guys are able to get hold of them. I'm going to disagree with United. Time to go back home. Assad is gone. Long live Syria. Look, I pray that Syria becomes a free country and a safe country that they can all flee back to. But I'm not sure we're going to be saying time to go back home if we find out in a few days' time that the new regime, the new government in Syria, is just as draconian or even more draconian than the current one. Okay, no one wants to go home to torture and imprisonment. I wouldn't want to, that's for sure. John thinks that this is going to potentially spark another civil war. We've had this sort of period of calm since about 2017 in Syria, with ceasefire agreements in place. Not that it is completely quiet and all happy days there, but there has been a period of peace. So it could get worse there. It could become even more unstable if there is a huge power vacuum left. The people who have toppled the Assad regime are not able to secure their power quickly, and all the other different groups. Okay, as we've said earlier, there are lots of different groups of bad guys they fight each other, they hate each other. It's not just good guys versus bad guys. This could get very messy and very, very complicated. Let's just hope that it doesn't end up in a horrible civil war where lots of civilians are all at risk. Let's see what else we've got. Exactly what I've been saying since Assad was overthrown. Now they've emptied the prisons, getting more terrorists. So I don't know if you guys saw the videos of the rebels going in and letting people out of prison. I mean, quite emotional videos there where they're opening the prison doors, and it's just filled with women in there and kids as well, and they're crying and they're like, it's okay, the Assad regime is no longer, you guys can leave, don't worry. And they are just absolutely hysterical, crying their eyes out, so glad to be. So they really look like the good guys there, but we don't know what these terrorists who are being called rebels are going to do once they've secured power. Those prisons may be full again soon once they've got a grip on power, and maybe they've done this dance and show to suggest that they're the nice guys who care about human rights and care about taking care of everyone. You got to ask, why have these rebels decided to do this? Do they want a scary Islamist regime, or are they genuinely just pissed off at the Assad regime, and they've changed their ways, and now they want to bring freedom to Syria? I don't know, but I will remain skeptical of the idea of there being, a lovely, peaceful land there until we see what happens over the coming days, weeks, and months. Oh, we've got more super chats coming in. We really, really appreciate it, guys, because that is what keeps our channel going. And also, you can support us as well by making sure you press the like button and you subscribe so that this video gets pushed around by the algorithm even further and more people see it. So let's have a look at a couple of super chats. Asa says, so Syria now has a new regime that's no different to Hamas and people are cheering for it. Yeah, so on the one hand, we don't know if there's going to be peace in the region. But on the other hand, we also do not know for certain that this is going to be, a horrible terrorist regime. As I said, these people, so-called rebels, they have done a lot to, change their image and appear more moderate. Whether that is genuine or not, we don't know for certain, okay? So when you see people out cheering on the streets, I've seen people posting on Twitter saying, look at these terrorist sympathizers, okay? I wouldn't call them terrorist sympathizers. There might be a few of them there who are, but I do not think that that is the main reason why they are out celebrating. They are out celebrating because a regime that has caused them so much pain, or them and their families and friends so much pain and so much suffering, is finally gone. They are hoping for something good to happen next. They don't know exactly what's going to happen next. But the main thing is, they're celebrating that a bad thing has ended, okay? They may, as I say, have celebrated too early. I think some of them are, they need to hold their horses a little bit. But I don't think that these people are out cheering on the streets because they are terrorist sympathizers, but maybe we can agree to disagree with that. Oh, both Asa and Lee are sending in multiple super chats. We very, very much appreciate this. Lee, I'm glad to know that you are happy now that my Santa hat is on now. I hope you appreciate it, and I hope the rest of the viewers do. Asa has left another super chat. Thank you. That's very, very generous of you. Much, much appreciated. Shamima Begum is in a refugee camp in Syria. When is she returning to the UK? Because that's what the next plan is. Remember, Shamima Begum is in a refugee camp in Syria. When is she coming back? Well, it sounds like you want her to come back. I mean, you'll have to tell me again in the comments. Are you wanting Shamima to come back to Britain? I mean, I know there are a lot of mixed views on this. There are plenty of people. I know Darren is very clear that he says good riddance to Shamima Begum. Sure, she may have been a 15-year-old at the time, but a lot of people would say that's kind of old enough to be a mature enough person to be responsible for your decisions. This was the girl who converted to ISIS and went off and became an ISIS bride at the ripe young age of 15, and then decided, oh no, I was wrong, and I want to come back home. And we won't let her, and she is using the courts, and she keeps on appealing and appealing and appealing. I'm not sure if she's got any ability to appeal left. I think she may have gone to the highest level that she can now with the appeals. There's this difficulty over citizenship because she's entitled to 2 different citizenships. So the Brits are saying, we'll get rid of your citizenship in Britain because you have another one that you can use. Whereas if she only had the option of British citizenship, the rules are weird in that if she only can have British citizenship, it makes it very hard for us to get rid of her citizenship because then that renders her stateless. Shamima is in a... She's not in just sort of a refugee camp. She's in a rehabilitation camp for where they de-radicalize you, and she is in the one that for the most de-radicalized people, which suggests that she, at least the people who are assessing her, think that she is very de-radicalized, and that perhaps strengthens her case to come back to the United Kingdom. But should we forgive her? I don't know. You guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Oh gosh, there are loads of comments. I cannot keep up with you guys. Let's have a look at a few more. Lee's commented again saying we don't want her back here. I started playing drums at 15, same but different. It's just a phase, Mom. There are far worse than her coming in daily. This is a sideshow issue to distract. Yeah, she is a case that has got so much press attention, and that amount of press attention that she has got, it's almost created the facade that she is the only young Brit who has been brainwashed and converted to ISIS or, other Islamist ideologies, when actually there are swathes of people who have done the same thing. Swathes of Brits and people from other countries who were brainwashed, for example, online through social media, who then went over to Syria and other places in the Middle East to support ISIS. Okay, Shamima Begum is just one of many, many people, but because she was a teenager and she was a young girl, and she's she's begged to come back and got all this attention and done all of these court appeals and whatnot, it's ended up going far in the press. But don't be fooled and think that because you've just seen a lot of Shamima Begum in the press, that she is the only young adolescent who was converted to ISIS ideology online. There are so many of them. There are scary, scary numbers of them. No to Shamima Begum. Sorry, but Begum must never return to this country. She is a traitor. Okay, not her coming back does not seem to be popular with you guys. Julie says they shouldn't have left their wives and children to be tortured while they live in the lap of luxury. They should not be celebrating terrorists on the streets of London. Islamists are evil. I would have mixed opinions on this. I think there is this kind of false narrative that goes around that suggests, they've abandoned their wives and children because they don't care. There are plenty of them who will come and they'll say, once I get there, don't worry, I'll call for you, I'll send money home for you. Once I get my asylum application approved, I'll be able to bring you over as well. You guys just wait. And then they go, and then they never call for them. But that's not the case for everyone, okay? The reality is, as you know, all these sort of illegal crossings, they cost thousands and thousands. And it's not just the one across the channel that they do, right? They've got to do many of them. And they can barely afford to send one person on one of those trips. They can't afford to send, the mum, the dad, the son, the daughter. I mean, it would just be absolutely extortionate. So they decide to send one person. That's usually going to be the eldest son of the family. Okay, so agree and disagree with you slightly. Obviously, anybody celebrating terrorists on the street of London, that should not be advocated for. As I said, I don't think these people out celebrating today are, at least for the most part, I don't think they are celebrating terrorists. But people who are out on the streets saying Hamas are friends and saying and celebrating October 7th, that is celebrating terrorists on our streets. And I do not want to see that in Britain. Right, let's see if we've got any more spicy comments before we finish for the day. Now, Jojo says, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'd say I'm cautiously optimistic too. I think the Syrians generally, I think their view is probably that what they're going to get is probably going to be better than the Assad regime. I think that's what they're hoping for. They're not hoping for perfection, but they're optimistic. But as I said, it could end up even worse than the Assad regime. We don't know. Okay, anyways, I think that's enough for tonight. So just to summarize for anyone who has joined in the stream late, we have had the Home Office decide that they are going to pause decisions on Syrian asylum claims after the fall of Bashar al-Assad. Very fast-moving situation in Syria. We could end up with good guys in power. We could end up with bad guys in power. These rebels that took over, they are sort of, at least ex-terrorists, people who are on terrorist lists, but they have moderated their image and made themselves look more like the good guys. Whether it's genuine or not, we don't know for sure at this stage. But the Home Office has taken the bold decision. I mean, they're absolutely useless. I'm quite surprised that they acted so quickly on this, but they've followed in the footsteps of Germany, Greece and Austria, and they are pausing decisions on Syrian asylum claims whilst we assess the current situation. So they're sitting back and seeing what happens. We'll see what happens over the coming days and weeks, and we will keep you updated, so make sure you're subscribed to the Reason channel if you're not already, because we will be keeping you updated. Thank you very much, and we will see you tomorrow. Adios.
Still watching? Well, I've got a quick ask for you. Recent UK, we're fighting the woke brigade and inspiring young Brits, but we need your help to go bigger. We're hosting a fundraiser and would love you to sign up and share the link on the big day. It's easy, it makes a massive impact, and there are prizes for top fundraisers. Click the Google form in the description to join us. Cheers very much. Let's keep going together.